Hi, let's talk about company culture. So often we talk about trying to match the culture with your culture and your values, but what does that actually mean? I just want to talk about a couple of red flags that you need to pay attention to if you want to really get an understanding of the company culture. I've talked about this before, but it's important to talk about it again because too many people end up in the recruiter's office talking about that mismatch, and it's enough for them to look for a new job. So the first thing is you want to make sure that there's no uncomfortable silence when the boss is in the room. So let's say your last interview is with the boss, and I say it that way because they want to be called the boss rather than a colleague, another way, that feeling, that heavy feeling of when the person's called a boss. So that person comes into the room and they suck the air out. Or you're walking around and you can see that people's eyes go down, things get really quiet. Pay attention to that feeling because that should tell you something. Another thing you should look at, let's say you're in an interview with a panel and the highest ranking person is there and everyone defers to them. The rest of the panel doesn't have their own opinion. That's an indication that perhaps their opinions don't really count that much. Everyone should have, if they're there to interview you, they should be there with an opinion and some questions. It shouldn't be just one person driving the entire thing. So pay attention to that. If people cut each other off in that panel interview, that gives you an idea of maybe the culture and if it's permitted. Another big red flag, believe it or not, that people do is they throw one another under the bus. So I badmouth my colleague that just interviewed you or disparaging remarks. Sometimes it's very subtle. You've got to listen for those kinds of things. You also want to talk to HR and the hiring manager, and there are a couple questions you should ask that are exactly the same question to see if you have consistent answers. So if you want to ask about why is it so great to work here, talk to me about the company culture, see what the two parties say, because it may not be the same answer. So you have to pay attention to that little voice or that feeling that you have, because if it's there, there's something you need to dig a little bit deeper to make sure that you're making the right decision. And of course you do the regular stuff like asking people outside of the organization, reading up on them online, all those kinds of things. But do not let that little voice go unanswered. I'm Dawn Williams. I can reach on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Happy selling.